20 survival games that are harder than real life. Damn, it's long video. Let's go.
Resource management, strategic.
Damn, there's a game that we were supposed to plan on Son of the Forest, but this doesn't work. Okay.
Dealing with unpredictable
Santa
threats,
the Forest, chat. That's what we want to play.
Monsters or other players. Survival games, of course, aren't realistic in the literal
I think
sense,
Ras is gonna be here, chat.
to feel real. The way they test players actually feels like something you might have to kind of go through to survive some kind of constant struggle with very high stakes. And an authentic experience.
I think Ras is gonna be here for sure.
A survival game is
But it's PvP, I think, mainly. Not really. Oh yeah, Ark as well.
20
crazy.
survival games that truly test you. Let's get started with number 20. It's Stranded Deep. Let's start off with
Subnautica maybe?
As a
Raft,
game as you're gonna get. Stranded Deep puts you
this
on
game looks
a randomly generated
nice.
tropical island with the basic goal of surviving and eventually finding a way out of there. You got a beautiful tropical environment
and there's like ships and whatnot.
where death waits around every corner.
They might eat this thing up like slop,
Like
chat.
many survival games, the hardest part is right at the start when you're still learning the ropes and figuring out how the game works. Once you build a proper raft, the experience gets a lot easier, but until then, the game pulls no punches. In terms of survival simulation, it's not the most in-depth or hardcore. You're not counting calories and painstakingly crafting every stick for a fire, but it's not exactly easy either. You do need to find clean water, and you can get food poisoning that'll dehydrate you super fast. Clean water is at a premium, so dying of thirst is fairly common for first-time players. Oh, what's this? A coconut? That should be safe to drink, right? Nope, you're gonna have to do better than that here. Drinking water from a coconut's gonna make you sick eventually. If not for the fact that it is a mild laxative, then purely for the awful taste. So
what? Coconut water is not
usual survival game crutches.
Yeah, this game looks easy, I'm not gonna lie. Survival looks easy.
And number 19 is The Forest.
Santa the Forest, yes.
What starts off as your average survival game becomes something much more horrific. Once again, it's not the most realistic or in-depth survival experience. Just trying to stay alive in a hostile environment is actually the least of your concerns when you're stuck on an island inhabited by vicious cannibals and
they're cannibals.
Mutants.
Oh yeah,
so
and
death
mutants.
rarely comes from starvation or sickness. You're mostly meeting your end from a serrated blade of a blood-soaked psycho, but there's still some challenging and realistic
this game looks buggy, I'm not gonna lie.
Base
The
construction
mobs especially
is more hands-on than you usually get in a survival game. You actually have to cut down trees by hand. You cut those trees into logs and then boards, and all of a sudden it's a woodworking YouTube video. Building walls is not as simple as placing down a blueprint, and it just auto-filling.
This is what we wanted. This is exactly why we wanted to play this game.
Build it out. If you want to,
because that's exactly this building feature.
And add a stick instant tent. But that's more than you would have to do normally. Normally, you would select the tent and the items and click where you want the tent. It makes crafting and building a satisfyingly tactile experience. In contrast to most other survival games, though, all that stuff, it's just super abstract. Like I said, you pick an item and click. In other games, I'll also say maybe having to do everything by hand would be annoying, but here it works because the usual survival systems are a little more simplified. Doesn't mean it's not challenging though, just that the danger isn't primarily from nature. The real thing you have to worry about are the monsters who will beat down your door and drag you into some impossibly dark cave.
Then we should play on hard difficulty then.
Sometimes they'll kill you fast, sometimes agonizingly slow.
This game it's okay, but like the mob, I don't know.
And number 18 is The Long Dark. Even though it's not technically complete, the story mode somehow still isn't actually finished.
What is
yet.
this?
The Long Dark is a
game. I'm good of this.
classic of the genre for good reason. While games like The Forest are more like monster mashes with survival elements, The Long Dark is about surviving the cold, harsh winter of northern Canada. There are dangers like
that game is boring as hell.
Stalking around. They're terrifying.
You can see just by the art style already.
It's
like a trash.
What you really have to worry about
game.
is the cold. Cold is the constant danger and the most consistent killer. Just being outside is dangerous.
Super minimalist and all that kind of stuff. I'm good of that.
Isn't exactly one-to-one with reality. It's gamified and abstracted, so you don't have to worry about your core temperature. And regardless of how cold it is outside, interiors are always the same temperature. Still, the game manages to do an admirable job of keeping the cold a constant concern. You have to dress up in multiple layers of clothing, all of which will eventually break down after extended use. They require repairs. Yes, you're generally safe inside, but the more time spent indoors, the more stir crazy you get with the literal cabin fever affliction. So you always have to be on the move.
Let's
even
put
places where you're safe
more
can start to
speed,
feel
chat, more
dangerous
speed.
after a while. The toughest thing about the game is there's no sustainability. Your only means of survival is through scavenging, and once you've picked a location dry, all you can really do is move on to the next place. Eventually, resources are just going to run out. You won't be able to repair your clothes and get food sources. Everything just gets more scarce as time passes.
Okay,
In
it's
survival mode, you're
okay, it's
eventually
okay,
gonna die no matter what. It's a
I don't
matter
know
of
if
how
I'll
long
buy
you
it.
just keep going.
Maybe I have to crack it. Black bear. I can't remember this. Like you're saying, like if you see a black bear do this, if you see
The game isn't
Odyssey,
difficult in the traditional sense. It's not a super hardcore simulation, but rather it's a more linear survival adventure. But the basic
Oh, this monkey game that people are talking about. Okay, yeah, I know about this one.
And this isn't just some standard.
I haven't played it, but I think
almost everything else out there.
Penguins played it.
It's a frustrating game for people who don't just look up what you're supposed to do. If you stick with it, it's an interesting game buried in all the confusion. The game isn't about survival of a single individual, but the entire evolution of mankind from the earliest hominids to something resembling mankind today. It's very ambitious, it's very strange, and oh, is it frustrating and weird as hell. But that's why it's so intriguing. When the game starts, there's no user interface, and just learning to identify objects in the world is confusing. What's unusual for a game like this is you're not just relying on one sense. You have 3: sight, hearing, and smell, and they're all mapped to different inputs. Evolving doesn't just come from gaining some generic experience. You have to do things to make it happen, and are often not explained at all. Like becoming a meat eater. At first, your monkey man is an herbivore. They get sick when they try to eat meat, but if you keep trying to eat meat, it'll eventually make it so your guy gets used to it, and your clan gets the meat eater trait when they evolve. That's a small
this looks kind of cool actually.
It's unlike anything else, so even basic actions like that can come out confusing when you're actually playing the game. It is an
She can actually make a human better than us humans,
and it's worth a shot for somebody looking for something different.
Evolution feed, adaptive
And
something.
16 is Green Hell. Now here's where things start to get really hardcore. Green Hell is it's a survival game set in the Amazon rainforest. It pulls no punches in survival simulation. Nothing is easy about this game. Your diet is complex. The various plants and animals all have special medicinal or dietary purposes. And eating is just one of the things you have to do to survive, and it's definitely not enough on its own. There's hostile creatures and natives, but the most dangerous thing out there is the environment itself.
More cannibals. People must love the cannibals.
On the ground, you get worms that tunnel into your skin. You have to remove them with a knife. Yikes. Getting food poisoning, super easy, and once you're sick or injured, it's very difficult to get healthy again. Just doing something simple like lighting a fire is difficult. You need sticks, an ignition tool, dry tinder. If it gets wet, then it's ruined. And most importantly, the stamina to actually use the tool. If you're too tired to rub a stick, then you're screwed. Once you eventually relatively accessible games in the entire survival genre. And number 15 is My Summer Car Green
My
Hell.
Summer
Maybe
Car,
the
okay.
survivor game. My
Green
Summer Car
Hell, okay.
isn't. It's bizarre. And that on the surface doesn't sound like a survival game at all, but believe me, it is. You play as a Finnish teenager on a summer break who has one and only one goal, to build a car. You start off in a house, you have beer and snacks, so what's the problem? Well, the stuff in your kitchen is only going to last
This
so
game
long.
looks fun,
You
actually.
need groceries, but there's one little problem. Your car isn't just a fixer-upper. It's a blank frame. That's it. That's what it is. To build the car, you had to attach literally every single possible piece of the car to the frame, piece by painstaking piece. Those parts need to be secured by bolts, which are all different sizes and require different spanners. Just building the car is a nightmare. It's incredibly realistic in the construction, but it's so precise you either have to be a mechanic in real life to figure it all out, or you have to look up what to do.
Damn, you did the right tool for
It's
the
very
right
tedious,
side
and
ball.
that's just the start
It's
of the game.
funny.
You've got multiple meters you have to keep topped up to avoid instantaneous
Those hunger
thirst,
stress, you
but also
can
dirtiness.
damn,
To
this
keep
is
your character
crazy.
happy, you have to keep an ample supply of booze and food, which requires a trip to the local grocery store. You'd think that'd be simple, but in My Summer Car, your average Sunday drive is a life or death struggle. You got a long way to go, and the car is barely holding together. You're
At least he has all the
danger ending up
parts,
in a ditch,
Charlie. At least he has
and
all the
drivers
parts.
will happily smash your car into tiny bits and drive away like it's no big deal. Inexplicably, the world of My Summer Car is one of the most deadly and difficult survival games out there. It is possible to reach a point of sustainability, but good luck lasting that long. And number 14 is This War of Mine, an unusual survival game.
This
It's less
War
about
of
managing
Mine,
a single
okay.
guy with complex weapon needs, and more about the survival of a group. At the start of any given time, you get a small selection of survivors in a shelter.
These games are okay.
There's a war going on in your city. Supplies are short. Safety nets are all broken. So it's up to you to survive any way you can. That means sending out people to scavenge for food and supplies and managing the needs of each survivor. You're not just filling up their hunger and thirst meters either. You have to worry about things like morale and sickness as well. Members of your group will die from sickness or hunger or just from a bullet to the face after opening the wrong door while scavenging.
Okay, then Bruno died.
Often, it's just up to the roll of the dice whether someone lives or dies. It's all mostly abstracted and plays closer to a management game than a full-on survival, but the unrelenting difficulty and the focus on
It's
trying
okay.
to
I used to play a lot of those games on the phone,
really puts
chat.
you in the headspace of a survivor, even if the presentation and premise is far removed from what you normally see in the genre. And number 13 is DayZ, one of the grand
DayZ, okay, everyone talking about
This
DayZ.
game started out as an Arma 2 mod before becoming a standalone product in 2013. And
That's a lot of games done actually. That's how Hytale started this.
Mercilessly difficult. If the erratic zombies don't kill you, then other players absolutely will. And if you die, it's
100% Argy's gonna be here then. 100% Rax is gonna be here.
in something like a tent, other players can still find it. The survival mechanics are just as merciless as anything else. The game thrives on realism in many large and small ways, and if you don't know just how detailed the game can get, you're gonna be surprised. I'll give you
It'll
one
be fine if
example.
you put
If you find
Minecraft.
canned food all over the place,
It'll
you
be
don't
fine
actually
if you
have
put
something to
Minecraft,
open it,
yeah.
You'll still starve. You don't just have to worry worry about water, food, and health. You also have blood levels to worry about. When injured, you lose blood, which is going to cause your vision to black out, and you'll eventually pass out if nothing is done to curb the blood loss. This would all be bad enough on your own, but you're competing with other players and not just for kills. A lot of the time, when you start the game for the first time, everywhere near you will be picked clean. You don't even have the chance to survive because other players have...
Let's go back to Brass to steal all the ham.
Direction, and it's easily one of the most unforgiving survival experiences of all time. It's also a hell of a lot of fun, honestly. And number 12 is Don't Starve. For a game that looks
Don't Starve. Oh yeah, this is really hard. Yeah, I know. Don't Starve together.
The interface is at least a lot more user friendly.
I don't like it, but the camera, like how you must skew it, it's like so weird.
They don't go out further than that. This game puts pressure on you right from the jump. You're short on time and resources. There's rarely a moment where you feel safe.
And it's insanity and what. Yeah.
So no surprise here. Getting food is an important part of the game.
It's dark, then you go insane. Yeah, I know this game. This game is hard.
Getting food means exploring, which puts you in the path of deadly monsters and an even deadlier night, which is not something you want to be caught out in. The survival elements are straightforward, to be fair, but it's how they're implemented into the game that makes it so challenging. Of course, with all the right knowledge, the game is a lot easier, but that doesn't mean it makes it easy, just less lethal.
Okay.
And number 11 is Card Survival Tropical Island.
Card Survival,
deck building game, which is a dime on Steam, but Card Survival is 100% a for-real survival game. The cards are just the presentation. It's simplistic visually, but the simulation here is actually excellent. It's a mechanically deep survival game with plenty going on.
I don't know about that. Actually, I used to play a lot of these games. I used to play a lot of games on my other channel.
These games really hate people drinking from coconuts, but I can't stop laughing at the word diarrhea. Hey Lois, diarrhea! I'm 100% dropping my iced tea every time that comes up. The game may appear basic at first, giving you only a few things to do. It's a really complicated game. Multiple separate body systems are simulated. Resources often have multiple different applications. There's so many.
There's how these games, so they look simple, but actually the most complex. That's how they normally do it.
There's a lot going on here, including diarrhea. And number 10 is Cataclysm: Dark Days Ahead.
Cataclysm, never heard of it.
With an almost overwhelming.
Oh my Jesus! Nah, I'm good of this. I'm good of this.
Monsters and Lovecraftian abominations. But even with all the weirdness going on, the central survival simulation is the real thing to be afraid of. Actually, that's not true. It's
this reminds me of the Dawn Empire, Dwarven Empire, Dwarven something like that. Apparently that's the most hardest survival colonism. It is so trash I don't even feel like playing it.
But surviving isn't easy. Getting wounded in the Cataclysm is easy, but healing is not. It takes a long time to recover from any significant injury, and if you don't have any medical skills, you won't even be able to use a first aid kit yourself, which, kicking myself for not going to nursing school there. In most cases, especially early on, before
I don't know why I said it 1.5 speed.
Any small setback can lead.
Let's put it at 1.5.
To a slow, lingering death. The amount of details here is just absurd. The game keeps track of ammo in your clips separately, not something you see that often. Lava causes your skin to blister if you stand too close to it. Gunshots can penetrate cover if its armor-piercing value is higher than the...
Yeah, I'm good at this game. I'm good at this game.
Deputy badge, which you can just find laying around. Then killer robots will think you're an authority figure and leave you alone. Everything has some kind of use or serves some kind of function, and there is just tons of stuff in the Cataclysm. This is a game you're most likely going to die from the many external threats hunting you in the post-apocalyptic world, so it's not as pure as other survival games out there, but it's unique and challenging experience.
Yeah, I'm good at this.
At number 9 is Subsistence. Think something like
Subsistence. Okay. Oh, they just mentioned Rust.
No story, no real explanation for what's going on. You're just having to deal with a very slow, difficult process of building up a base in order to survive. Getting started is a hell of a grind. You need a ton of resources to build pretty much anything. Food goes bad fast if you don't refrigerate it somehow. Rain will leave you cold and wet. Heat can cause dehydration. It's all very in-depth, and it's a lot more focused on resource management and building over your character's specific health concerns. It's one of those games that's so dead set on being realistic, it ends up being kind of a pain in the ass. But that's kind of the entire genre, if we're being super honest. It just depends on what your personal limit for that kind of nonsense is. And Subsistence unfortunately crossed that line for a lot of people with the tedious grinding requirements to make any substantial progress. Many players barely make it past a day or two. If it's not the hostile animals or hunters, it's a lack of food or healing items. Even on the easiest settings, the game is dead set on killing you. If it's
Let's see what number one. Oh my damn.
A lot of the stuff seems like it'd be easier to do in real life.
Let's see what number one is. This is number one is Rust Arc, then but whatever the number one is, we'll try it out. But I never mentioned the Rust Arc yet, so I don't know, Jake. Because those games are really hard. That guy's always hungry in Arc. Oh, okay. This one is hard. Actually. Yeah.
Absurdly complicated, and you got oxygen not included. Like
the first, and this game starts easy, chat. This game starts easy, but then the more you expand, the harder this thing just becomes, and you're like, oh my god.
Looks are deceiving here as well. This is actually one of the most in-depth physics.
This game is actually fun.
Any game ever. Period.
It always starts off easy, and the more you expand, the more everything just like
in a relatively safe pocket of this randomly generated asteroid with a little bit of O2 to keep them alive. But beyond that, you're on your own. As your little guys breathe in air, that O2 becomes deadly CO2. Machines that do anything at all generate heat, and because you're in a closed
and
environment,
CO2.
that heat has to be transferred somewhere, or all your little guys are going to cook in their own juices. Gas is spread realistically, so it's possible to have oxygen spread too thin to be usable. Certain gases you need for crafting.
Oh yeah, and like the gases like heavy. Some gases like heavy, and others some are lighter than others. Really fun, really cool game. 100% recommend.
Oxygen not included. It's a game where you can safely say that having a degree in chemistry or physics actually does make it easier to understand the game. They do obviously take creative liberties here and there to simplify a few things, but in general, it's a very intelligent game that requires some knowledgeable or just really persistent gumption, I guess, to get too far.
Really fun game. 100% recommend. 100% recommend. This is my endorsement. Yeah. That's not gonna help shit. I don't think he's gonna die here, basically. Let's see. No, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good.
At number 7 is Project Zomboid.
Zomboid,
The third line
okay.
you see after starting a new game is, "This is how you died," then yeah, you're dealing with an unforgiving game. The idea behind Project Zomboid
trash,
is to
I'm
create
good
the
at
most
this.
realistic possible zombie apocalypse. It's not a power fantasy where you're mowing down zombies left and right. This game is close to what would actually happen.
Yeah, I'm good at this trash game. It seems trash.
Yeah, dead. Or at least probably. We obviously don't know. That's never happened. But if the first few minutes of the game are anything to go by, we'd probably stumble around outside for a few minutes, draw the attention of every zombie in a 3-mile radius, and then die unceremoniously. That's generally how your first few runs this game go.
Yeah, the number one game not be some trash game like
The
this.
apocalypse is extremely difficult because any small cuts or sprains can spiral out into long-term injuries if they're not treated. Your character's mental state is just as important as their physical condition. It's easy to fall into depression if needs are not properly met. Your little guy can get stressed, can get addicted to cigarettes and alcohol, comfort foods.
What? You get addicted.
Boredom is another negative effect. There's just a lot to keep track of. Just one scratch or bite from a zombie gets you infected too, which is fatal. It makes any kind of supply run terrifying because one wrong move, one missed corner, you'll die. It's a very unforgiving game at times. It can feel almost random whether you live or die, but that's the goal of the game. Life isn't fair. Sometimes you'll be able to build a self-sufficient base that's all but impenetrable. Sometimes you cut your hand on some glass. You'll get an infection and then you'll die from it. That's Project Zomboid. Unforgiving as it is sometimes random, but it's always compelling.
Yeah, I would have given this game a look better than this. This is like a point and click. Yes, it is a point and click, isn't it? Yeah, I'm good at point and clicks.
Number 6 is Neo Scavenger. This turn-based survival roguelike is unique. Most survival games have little no story, while this game actually does. You play as a specific character with direct
Trash
goals.
again.
It's a much more story-based experience than you normally get in one of these games, but the survival elements are still about as hard.
Yeah, this is
such
trash. Nah, I'm good at this.
You gotta stay rested, comfortable. You got a blood pain level to maintain. Then there's your immune system along with pain tolerance. All these various bars affect your character's overall performance, and the lower they get,
I feel like this thing was. I feel like this is fake, chat.
all kinds of stuff.
This list is fake. I think it just added games here. Or I don't know, for money or something. Sponsorships or like these games are trash. I adding these games is trash games here.
Dirty rags, might I add. So you have to swap them out after a while, and to recover, you're gonna have to rest for long periods of time. You heal faster than in real life, but for a game, it's a painfully slow process. It's a brutally difficult game all around, and there's an actual story propelling you forward, set in a crazy post-apocalypse where anything goes.
Okay, buddy, put him to sleep here with your trash game.
And number 5, it's Stationeers, a space-based survival game.
Okay, what's this?
I'm not exaggerating by saying, without a coding or engineering background, this is gonna be a tough game. How everything works in Stationeers is extremely in-depth. There's very little.
This reminds me of that other one, Oxygenator, or whatever it's called.
It's a game with automation that at some point you're gonna need to get running, but to do so, you literally have to code using an in-game panel. They barely do anything to make the process simpler. If you're unable to do that, at least fans have made programs that you can find online.
This game's kind of fun. We should actually try this in.
There's nothing intuitive about this game at all.
I know how to go, but this will be kind of fun.
You won't know why because of how intricate the simulation is. It's one of those games where you have to watch multiple extensive tutorials just to understand the basics. So for people who really want to get into the nitty-gritty of space survival, there is an extremely interesting and challenging game here, but it's not for the faint of heart. And number 4 is Unreal World. This one goes
Unreal World, okay. Way back then, now I'm good at this trash again. More trash games.
The time of writing was September 13th last week. They didn't actually add most of the features of the game, particularly the ones it's actually known for until around 1996, but still, this has got a hell of a legacy. As far as survival gameplay goes, this one's very traditional but extremely difficult. The graphics look like they're from 1992. The UI is confusing, kind of hard to tell what you're looking at sometimes, but survival gameplay is some of the best and most realistic out there. The game just drops you into a forest in a slightly fantastical Finland and tells you to survive if you can. Most of the time, you can't. Surviving the first winter is no joke. The game simulates the effects of frostbite on separate body parts. You have to stockpile preservable supplies because there's fewer animals to hunt. Just being outside affects your health, and walking through all the tall snow wears you out. Basically, winter sucks. Your actual goals here are quite simple compared to other survival games. Build a stable homestead, go hunting, trapping, and fishing, and trade with nearby villagers. But the complexity of the mechanics
it's trash.
crafting in this game, they're far more difficult than
no one cares about just trash game.
And all that
What's next?
At least when it comes to the
unbelievable
how punishing it can be. There are people who go so far that they're literally sleeping at their desks to defend the bases.
Yeah, if you play Rust, you need 2 PCs, share. You need one PC to do everything else, and one PC just to play Rust. This game is literally Clash of Clans for adults, chat. For people on PC, this game is not for the faint of heart. Yeah, there we go, there's Rust. This game makes you anxious, makes you paranoid, all the anxiety. What's other words? This game is bad. This game is bad. Don't recommend.
Sure your stuff remains secure. I'm not exaggerating. It's a common story that in Rust, people have stayed awake for far too long just to make sure that nobody's breaking into their base. It's because of how unforgiving the standard PvP can be, and just how toxic other players are in general. There are peaceful servers where players are just screwing around and having fun, but if you're into the PvP, you got to prepare to play the game for a long time.
Okay, yeah, Sarah's is up here,
into at some point.
Number 2, number 3.
Your character remains in the game at all times. When you log off, your dude just goes to sleep. Where
so they can loot you and kill you,
everything
and
you've got exists somewhere in the game world. So if someone has the proper tools, and no matter how tough your doors are or how many layers of defenses you have, they can eventually be breached. If you're not there to keep an eye on things, you're just an easy target.
And also the stuff like
number 2 is
Scum.
Scum, another PvP survival game. Only this time the survival elements are cranked up beyond all reason. Scum is a game where if you eat too much candy, it'll rot your teeth. If you fire a gun inside, your ears are gonna ring. You can protect yourself.
Is this an actor? Like, I know this actor, chat.
Get wet. You actually get physically heavier until you dry off. It's a whole game of little details like that. It also has the most complicated nutrition system in any survival game I've ever seen. You've got calories, water, muscle, and fat. Not that impressive, right? But there's also vitamins and minerals, and that's not just 1 meter. The game keeps track of 23 separate meters for this stuff. They also keep track of digestion and separate it into stomach, intestine, colon, and bladder. And don't forget the macronutrient reserves. Can't forget those. Doesn't even stop there. The game keeps track of nutrient absorption speed and body mass distribution. I don't think nutrition in real life is this complicated. I'm pretty sure there's no way to accurately measure stuff like half the things going on here, but if you're playing this game, you better pay attention. Actually, most of the stuff barely matters, but the
damn, so this I don't think they're gonna add Ark here, because Ark can be hard sometimes.
And finally, at number 1,
it's
Vintage Story. It looks like Minecraft.
Is it good?
But when it comes to brutally difficult,
we could try it out.
Games, Vintage Story is next level. It's not so complex with the survival stuff like nutrients and food, but the crafting and gathering part of the game it's on a level beyond anything else. Crafting isn't done by building a bench and using a few pieces of wood.
Vintage Story,
okay. Make a napping surface out of loose stone, and then you form the object you want to make out of the grid. Making something out of clay, it's even more complicated.
Let's add a chat, Vintage Story.
But then you have to place the shape in a pit kiln, which needs dry grass, sticks, and firewood. It's going to take a little longer than a few seconds for that pottery to harden, too. It takes like 20 in-game hours, which is its own complicated process to create. While in hammer mode, there are multiple different types of hammer hits, different directions. It's extremely in-depth. Doing almost anything in Vintage Story, it's time-consuming, difficult, and it tends to require about 3 more resources than you probably used in other crafting games. It's a game that requires patience and diligence to get anywhere. It's not unusually punishing or anything to play like, most of these games. There aren't a million ways to die out of nowhere, but it requires so much work to do even the most basic things. This one is one of the most dedicated survivalists out there. It's unforgiving and challenging, not because it's so brutal, but because
we'll try this game out. I like this game. I like this kind of games. I don't know if you all guys who like the slumpy, don't like this type of game, chat. What's this in games?
If you're not
it was okay, chat. Some of these games were kind of trash, but yeah. So Vintage Story, we'll try it out. Let me just do it again, yeah.